Welcome to another spooky campfire story, created with AI assistance. So get cozy. Remember, that tingle you feel on the back of your neck, maybe it's not just a chill breeze.
I still can't believe what happened that night at the old fairgrounds. It was supposed to be just a harmless adventure, a bit of teenage fun. But it turned into a nightmare. Me, Jake my boyfriend, and Devin had been friends since middle school. We were always looking for new ways to spice up our boring small-town lives. One Friday night we were hanging out on Devin's back porch, drinking stolen beers from his dad's cooler and complaining about how lame our weekend was shaping up. "We gotta do something crazy," Devin said, crushing his empty can and tossing it into the yard. "I'm so freaking bored I could scream." Jake belched loudly. "Yeah, let's make some excitement happen." I didn't say anything, just sipped my beer quietly. Jake and Devin were always trying to push things further, while I was usually the hesitant one, afraid to take things too far. "I know what we can do," Devin said, leaning forward with excitement. "We can go explore that old abandoned fairground on the edge of town." "You know the one I'm talking about?" I shuddered, feeling goosebumps ripple up my arms despite the warm night air. "You mean Festival Land? That place is creepy. It's been closed for years." "Exactly," Devin exclaimed. "It'll be the perfect adventure. We can go see what's left of all the old rides and maybe sneak into some of the buildings. Who knows what kind of cool stuff we'll find." "I don't know," I said uncertainly. "Come on, don't be a wuss," Jake said, giving me a little shove on the arm. "It'll be awesome." "Yeah, it's not like the place is actually haunted or anything," Devin added with a mocking laugh. I looked down, tracing the rim of my beer can with one finger. The idea made me nervous, but I didn't want Jake and Devin to think I was scared. "I guess we could check it out," I finally conceded. The boys hooped excitedly and high-fived each other. We chugged the last of our beers and headed out into the night. Festival Land was on the outskirts of town, once a popular family amusement park until a fatal accident caused it to close down for good. The park had been left abandoned for nearly a decade, gates chained up and rides gathering dust. As we approached the tall chain-link fence surrounding the fairgrounds, I felt a growing sense of unease. The structures inside looked dark and menacing, metallic tentacles reaching up toward the night sky. Devin easily scaled the fence and dropped down on the other side. Jake quickly followed. They both turned and looked at me expectantly. "Come on, slowpoke," Jake called. I tentatively placed my hands on the metal fencing, rust scraping my palms as I climbed up and over. I lost my footing at the top and fell awkwardly to the ground with a little shriek. "Shoo, you want to wake up the whole town?" Devin scolded. I got quietly to my feet, wiping my dirty hands on my jeans. This was such a bad idea, but it was too late to turn back now. We moved slowly through the park, the beams of our flashlights cutting through the darkness. The main promenade was lined with concession stands and game booths, prize-filled shelves empty and counters covered in dust. It looked like one of those post-apocalyptic landscapes from a horror movie. In the distance, the metal coasters and ride carriages traced crazy patterns against the night sky. Jake and Devin seemed fascinated, examining the graffiti-tagged ticket booths and running their hands over the peeling paint on the rides. I lingered behind, sweeping my flashlight nervously across our surroundings. The sooner we got out of here, the better. "Yo, check this out," Devin called. He was standing in front of an elaborately decorated building with faded gold trim. I walked over to examine the plaque beside the door. "The Palace of Wonders," I read. Must have been one of those weird sideshow attractions. "Let's see what kind of wonders are inside," Devin said. Before I could object, he grabbed the rusty door handle and pulled. With a screech of metal hinges, the door swung open. The inside was pitch black. Devin flicked on his flashlight and shone it around. We were in a narrow hallway, framed photos lining the walls. In each photo, performers posed in colorful costumes. A bearded lady, a sword swallower, conjoined twins. Jake whistled. "This place is rad. Let's check it out." He and Devin headed eagerly down the hall. I lingered in the doorway, peering uneasily into the darkness. Every instinct told me we needed to leave. But I hurried to catch up, not wanting them to think I was a scaredy cat. The hallway opened up into a large room filled with rows of wooden benches facing a curtained stage. Dust particles danced in the flashlight beams as we made our way down the center aisle. When we reached the edge of the stage, Devin swept his light across the faded red curtain. "What do you think is back there?" "Could be anything," Jake replied with an eager grin. "Let's find out." Before I could protest, they had both scrambled up onto the stage and disappeared behind the curtain. I stood, hugging myself tightly, pulse racing. This was not right. We were definitely trespassing now. I was about to call out to my friends when a blood-curdling shriek pierced the air. It sounded like Devin. There was a crashing noise and frenzied whispers. Then silence.
"Jake? Devin?"
My voice came out high-pitched and quivery. No response. I stood paralyzed for a minute that seemed to stretch on endlessly. Then I forced myself to climb slowly onto the stage. I clutched the tattered curtain, too terrified to pull it aside.
"Guys?"
I pleaded desperately. "Can you hear me?" Only silence answered. I was shaking all over, but I knew I had to look. Bracing myself, I swept back the curtain. My flashlight beam landed on nothing. Just an empty wooden floor extending to a black backdrop. No sign of my friends at all. I swept the light wildly around. "Where are you?" "Quit messing around." The air seemed to grow heavier, weighed down by an unsettling presence. I wanted to run, but I had to find my friends first. Stepping cautiously forward, I noticed a narrow opening in the left wall. Moving toward it, I discovered a tight spiral staircase leading down into unfathomable darkness. I leaned over the edge, shining my light downward. "Jake? Devin?" My voice echoed eerily against cold stone walls. The stairs seemed to descend forever into shadows. Where did they lead? My heart hammered against my ribs. I wanted more than anything to turn and flee this nightmarish place. But I had to find my friends. I took a deep breath and began my descent, each metal step ringing dully under my feet. The temperature dropped the lower I went, a damp chill seeping through my clothes. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. 50 steps, 80 steps, I lost count. The stairs just kept winding endlessly down into nothingness. Finally, I reached the bottom, stepping out into a murky stone chamber. My light revealed damp, slime-covered walls and a dirt floor. The room appeared empty.
"Jake! Devin!
I shouted, desperate for any sign of life.
Help!"
The faint cry sent my heart leaping. I followed the sound down a cramped passageway, stumbling through the darkness. "Keep yelling. I'm coming." I emerged into another chamber, larger than the last. My light flickered across a row of rusty metal cages along the left wall. I rushed forward, gripping the bars. Empty. Where was that voice coming from? I spun in circles, disoriented. "Where are you?" "Here." The weak reply led me to a wooden door in the back corner. I grabbed the rusty handle and pulled. The heavy door creaked open. I found myself staring down a long corridor lined with glass cases. Creatures floated in yellowish liquid behind the smudged glass, deformed shapes and contorted bodies barely recognizable as living things. Hideous monstrosities from a freak show's darkest dreams. I cowered against the wall, revolted. Then noticed a trail of smeared blood on the floor ahead. "No. Please," the faint cry propelled me onward, past nightmarish things I couldn't let myself dwell upon. The blood trail ended at a glass case housing a shapeless mass floating in viscous fluid. As I approached, a hand slapped against the glass from inside. I leapt back, stifling a scream. Peering closer, I saw Devon's face pressed against the case, mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "Devon!" I cried. I grabbed the metal latch and pulled, lifting the heavy glass lid. He was curled at the bottom of the case, covered in blood and fluid. I reached to help him sit up. "What happened? Where's Jake?" "Elle, look out!" he gasped hoarsely. I didn't have time to react before powerful hands seized my shoulders, hauling me back. My flashlight clattered to the floor. An arm wrapped around my neck, cutting off my breath. I thrashed violently, but the iron grip only tightened. Devon shrieked.
Let her go!
My attacker released me, and I fell forward, gagging. As I struggled to breathe, a cold, guttural voice rasped from the shadows behind me. "Fresh blood, it's been too long." Heavy footsteps circled me. I huddled on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. The footsteps moved away, and I heard the creak of Devon's glass case closing. "Time to feed," the guttural voice muttered. A loud thud sounded as something heavy dragged across the floor. Then came a horrible crunching noise, followed by a blood-curdling scream. "Devon, no!" I cried. Vicious slurping and chewing noises filled the chamber. I clawed desperately for my fallen flashlight. My hands closed around the metal cylinder. I flicked it on, light spinning wildly across the walls. In the glass case, a hulking, misshapen form hunkered over Devon's lifeless body, stripping flesh from bone with claws and teeth. At the sight of my light, the creature released its prey and turned, letting out an unearthly wail. Its pale, deformed body glistened with blood. Empty white eyes settled hungrily on me. I released a primal scream of pure terror. The creature lunged, and I dove aside, its claws raking the air where I just stood. Scrambling to my feet, I fled blindly down the corridor. The heavy footsteps pounded after me. Icy panic squeezed my lungs, sharp pains needling my side. Still, I ran through the dark maze, the creature's guttural cries at my heels. Suddenly, my light flashed over a metal run embedded in the wall. A ladder! New strength surged through my body. I scrambled up, not looking down. The metal rungs flew by in a blur. I emerged into the theater and jumped to the stage floor. The creature's snarls echoed up from below. No time to think. I sprinted down the aisle and busted through the door into the night air. Gulping lungs full of air, I ran and ran, boots pounding the gravel midway. With a final burst, I flung myself at the fence and clambered over, tumbling to the ground. I staggered to my feet and raced away into the night. The dark fairground receded in the distance, a hulking symbol of horror I had barely escaped. I ran until I reached the glow of street lamps and the familiarity of neighborhood houses. Only then did I collapse, sobbing and broken on the curb. Jake and Devon were gone, 2 more lives claimed cruelly by whatever evil inhabited that place. I had survived, but the terror of that night would haunt me forever. The town dismissed my story as trauma-induced fantasy. But I know the truth. There are some nightmares from which you never fully wake up.
The end. If you enjoyed this spooky story, please like, subscribe for another spooky campfire story, and please leave a comment.